Light of the Bhagavat. Yesterday, we spent some time giving a little history of how this book came into being, and the phrase culture of the human spirit comes into Prabhupada's language in this text because it was composed, the book was composed for that event. So just for those of you that weren't with us yesterday, or a refresher for those that were. January 1961, Prabhupada had taken sannyas about a year and a half prior to that. In one of his visits to Delhi, for the purpose of gathering subscriptions for Back to Godhead magazine, etc., he met a gentleman who gave him a flyer. And the flyer was sent around the world promoting an event that was to take place in May 1961. Now, what's going on in the world in 1961? It's after World War II, and during World War II and after World War II, boundaries were up, big walls. Visas weren't being permitted, people weren't moving around because there was lack of trust politically. And in 61, the barriers started coming down a little bit, and forward-thinking people, like this event organizer, he had established an international organization for the culture of human spirit, which could mean anything under the sun. Very blasé. But the mood was forward-thinking people. We've had 2 world wars. Let's bring that which is of unity and will unify all of us is the culture of the human spirit. It wasn't exactly an anti-war. It was a forward-thinking what the world should be like. And so he was organizing an international event to be held in Tokyo, and it took place. Prabhupada wrote a letter to the organizer. The organizer very generously, quickly sent the sufficient letter that would enable him to get a visa and a passport to go to Japan. And Prabhupada knew very well that Bhaktisiddhanta was instructing him to go the other direction. But there was an opportunity, and there would be international people. And so when he got the letter, he then started his never think small, always think big plan, 20,000 word book. And I brought some copies with me. But let's do it later. He's got the book. You can get some copies from him. It never got published. During Prabhupada's lifetime, it was not published, but he was in the fast lane. The book was written, and he wanted the organizer of the event to publish the book. He wanted the organizer of the event to find an artist that could paint according to the style of Eastern world, Eastern culture style of paintings. Prabhupada described in detail what the painting should include. He was not an artist, but he knew what he wanted. And the book wasn't printed, and the paintings weren't done, and he couldn't get the funds together to go to Japan. So it sat on the shelf. Not only sat on the shelf, it sat in a trunk, along with other things. And 23 years later, the manuscript was found along with his descriptions of the artwork and the correspondence with this man and Prabhupada's thoughtfulness in reaching an international audience. And we heard yesterday, this is just a review from yesterday, his message to the organizer was This will help, understanding the message of Vedic culture will help to reshape the human spirit towards, these aren't his words, but the kind of thing that the organizer of the event wanted. This Vedic wisdom matches your objectives. So that's where we ended. He didn't publish the book. He didn't go to Japan because Krishna had another plan for him. And that was May 1961. And then we heard that Prabhupada completed Volume 1 of Canto 1 Srimad Bhagavatam in 1961, the next in 62, and the next volume is 64, something like that. And he was readying himself with Srimad Bhagavatam first canto to launch somehow to go to America. He certainly didn't have airfare, he didn't have anything. He had vision, he had some books. Somehow he managed to scrape enough money together to print those 3 volumes and carried them with him in a trunk. And of course the rest is history. But so back to the light of the Bhagavad. He envisioned that people of the Orient or the Far East appreciate lessons in life learned from scenes of nature. So he took Canto 10, Chapter 20, description of the monsoon or the rainy season and the autumn season. And this was the World Conference for Cultivation of the Human Spirit. Here's some text. Here's some of the paintings. Srila Prabhupada considered that lessons from nature, from the classic Srimad Bhagavatam, would appeal to the enlightened participants. Oops. He selected one chapter and illustrations were to be painted to accompany the translation and purports. I've got a cough. Pardon me. But here's the artist. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, in his very special way, he interviewed many, selected her artists, and I shared this yesterday. She was commissioned by the BBT, China BBT, to paint according to the indications that Srila Prabhupada gave, what he wanted the art to be. And so Prabhupada was the visionary, Tamal Krishna was the art director, and she was the artist. And there are paintings in the book that are very nice, in the traditional style of that part of the world. Mentioned yesterday, the title, Light of the Bhagavad, comes from this verse. Krishna sva dhammo pagate dharma jnanadibi saha kalau nashta drisham esha puranarko. Puranarko. Arka means sun. Puranarko dunotitaha. This Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun. And it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali, that's the painting on the left, shall get light from this Purana, so light of the Bhagavad. It's towards the end of chapter 3. It's an important verse. And different paintings were made as cover paintings for the book. Now this is where the characters are in in English, but this is one of the paintings of our artist friend, and local style. Canto 10, Chapter 20. Description. The title of it is Description of Monsoon and Autumn Seasons in Vrindavan. So we're in Vrindavan. Prabhupada is taking his reader to Vrindavan, and his intention in doing so was to give lessons of life or spiritual truth through nature. Now, the context, a little bit about the context. Elevation, this is my comment. It's a bridge preaching concept. That is, know what your audience will relate to, present that which your audience will relate to, and then connect it to Krishna. So some people are over there. And you go over there and hang out with them over there and do stuff over there that's like, they get the message, you accept them for who they are. And as they start to feel comfortable that you, not just, cosmetically, but you respect them for who they are and you accept them for who they are, then the door becomes open, and then you can point to the bridge. Say, how'd you like to walk on that bridge for a little bit? Sure, yeah, I'm comfortable with you. And you take a couple of steps on that bridge. That's one way of saying what bridge preaching is. And Prabhupada's way was giving people access to the highest concepts of Bhagavad Dharma through scenes of nature. Now, part of this is, the next set of slides is, I made this presentation from beginning to end, something like 20 sessions with the devotees from China. Every Monday, morning our time, evening their time, we've gone through all 45 verses and other things. So in the course of doing that, I learned that there's a group called Dong. It's a minority, Chinese national minority in Southwest China. Then they hold these same values, and they even today. They worship nature. Mountains, rivers, trees, bridges, and rocks. They offer respect to the sky and gods in China. The group called by Dong. Anyone a little bit familiar with China? You heard of Dongbei? Northeast. Like Beijing. Bei. That Bei means north. Dong means east. So Dongbei is that whole big section of China that goes up like that. Dongbei. So this is a group called Dong. They're in the southwest of China. They offer ancestors every meal with the understanding ancestors should eat first. They have this idea to before killing animals, you have to chant a spell to assist the soul to take another birth as a good person. I mean, it's not exactly Vedic, but there's some semblance. In modern China, it's still intact. Here's some of their festivals when they're making offerings and how they attire themselves and train the children. And it's part of their culture, is worshiping nature, literally worshiping nature. So chapter 20 comes after chapter 18, 19 in 10th Canto Bhagavatam. In chapters 18, 19, we find the cowherd boys. They're young. It's before the Govardhan Leela, so it's before Krishna's 7 years of age. And the previous chapters, they related the killing of Pralambasura. And then after the killing of Pralambasura, there was the second forest fire, and all of that was narrated. And then the elders, at the end of that section, the elders are wondering, who was Krishna and Balaram? And some of them speculate. We don't do that, right? But they speculated, maybe they're demigods. chapter changes. We're now moving into the rainy season. Now, a part that I skipped with all of you is a whole nice section. I'll just narrate it very briefly. Barha is Vrinda Devi's sister. Barha is the personality of the rainy season, and there's a whole description of her by Kavi Karnapur. Very beautiful description. We made a little video, recording with different pictures, and so when it's time, Vrinda Devi calls her cousin sister Barha, and the rainy season begins. So we're now it's very nice, very colorful, poetic description. Kavi Karnapur. And the rainy season has begun, and during the rainy season, there's the natural beauty of Vrindavan becomes abundant. And according to our acharyas, these descriptions of the abundance in the rainy season and after the rainy season is the stimulations for ecstatic love, udipan. Some of you know that term. You know that term? Udipana. Udipana means stimulation for or of ecstatic love. So one who has some affinity for Krishna by the time you get to chapter 18 and 19, there may be some affinity for Krishna. And hearing about the rainy season is meant by the narrator and the author, Vyas, is to stimulate our ecstatic love for Krishna. So maybe some of you will start to feel some ecstatic love for Krishna just by hearing these nice descriptions. Light of the Bhagavat. We'll cover this evening 5 chapters. And the way that Srila Prabhupada did it, I explained this, but we'll say it again. It's not that he took Canto 10, Chapter 20, verse number 1, and that was exactly what went into the book. He took poetic license. He took the essence. Sometimes he would take 1 verse or 2 verses or 3 verses and synthesize them and express a mood about the rainy season. And then, along with the description of the scene during the rainy season, he would then take the reader, his audience, to the lesson that one can learn. And of course, from nature you can learn many, many things, but he was directing the audience towards the whole range of the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. I mean, one of my appreciations, having gone through this several times now, is Prabhupada is retelling the entire 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam in 45 verses. Well, if you want a challenge, try it. And by illustrating scenes of nature. It's really masterful. The year was 1961. He's, one might say, new in his acharya role, but gifted and empowered. And anyway, it's brilliant. So chapter 1, there's a subtitle. This is not in Prabhupada's writing. It's my understanding of the subtitle. In each of the chapters, there's a subtitle. Reestablishing our relationship with the Supreme. So there's the painting. The arrival of clouds, rainy season, accompanied by thunder and flashes of lightning all over the sky, provides a picture of life-giving hope. And then Prabhupada would go to his commentary. Covered by deep bluish clouds, the sky appears artificially dressed. The thunder and lightning within the clouds are signs of hope for a new way of life. Catch the poetic imagery. Here, as a breakdown, the poetic imagery. There's the sunlight that's now covered by the clouds, the jiva's swarup and the effulgence of the jiva in the jiva's spiritual form. But in the rainy season, that jiva's swarup is covered by these three things: sattva, rajas, tamas, lightning, thunder, and clouds. He's moving fast. Now remember, his audience are people that don't know anything about anything, about Vedic culture anyways. And he's introducing them to Vedic culture. And he's painting an image, a picture, that helps them understand the Bhagavatam's message, or the light of the Bhagavat, through imagery of the rainy season in Vrindavan. Here's one of the paintings. This is the lightning, the clouds, and the sky. So in the imagery, the lightning is the life-giving hope. And that hope is reestablishing our relationship with Krishna. This is the first verse. He's not fooling around. He's going quickly. There's the scene, the lightning coming from the cloud. And for the living entity in the material world, it gives hope for a change, for something connecting one with transcendence. And right away, he's going into this understanding of the absolute truth. We're going to see this painting several times. It's one of the nicest paintings in the whole set of illustrations. You see in the lower left, there's the cosmic manifestation, material creation, lower left corner. And then there's a cloud. That cloud is a cloud of the material energy, the Mahatattva. And above the Mahatattva, there's the spiritual sky. And within the spiritual sky, there's spiritual planets. And amongst those spiritual planets, there's Krishna Loka. So although there's clouds and lightning and there's the modes of nature acting, nonetheless, the absolute truth is there. The light of the absolute is there. And the absolute truth, in one sense, is the Brahman, the serene, limitless, expansive sky. And then there's living entities. That's us. And their living entities are truths, presently at least, manifested in the modes of nature. So now, first verse, we have this wonderful picture of the rainy season with all these things in the modes of nature. And here's his description of the modes of nature. The cloud of covering, that's ignorance. And forgetfulness, ignorance leads to forgetfulness of the absolute truth and our original identity. And this gentleman with his shoes up, sticking his shoes at your face, he's going to show up a few times. Because this is the false ego, the separatism that leads people to not see unity, but see not only diversity, but I'm the best. False ego. And those are three features covering the living entity that has an eternal relationship with the personality of Godhead, but it's covered. This is the first verse. Just getting started. So separatism and false ego, it includes the I and mind conceptions. Those of you that like reading Srimad Bhagavatam, you know about this, aham and mama. And he gets into it right away. It's laying the ground for the light of the Bhagavat. False separatism and the quality of passion give rise to a creative force of separate lordship over the mode of ignorance, our dear friend. And the flash of lightning is the only beam of hope that can lead one to the path of knowledge. So where does this flash of lightning come from? Well, it comes from merciful clouds or merciful people that can come into our lives and can help awaken us to our connection with the Absolute. And that's Srila Prabhupada. He's that flash of lightning. First verse, simultaneous oneness and difference. He's not wasting any time. Achinta Beta Beta Tattva. And all this is just the clouds in the sky. And some lightning. And the rainy season. The limitless sky, or the all-pervading absolute truth, is simultaneously one and different from the fractional portions of a sky, a jiva, that's liable to be covered by a dark cloud. Here, Prabhupada is indicating what he does in many places. Prabhupada indicates that the Brahma Jyoti is a collective, homogeneous assembly of tiny particles. In science, is light particles or a ray? You know that one? There's a whole thing in science. You look at it this way and it's a wave, and you look at it that way and it's particles. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. It's like, an interesting science experiment. And depending upon how you look at it, the light can behave like a particle, the light can behave like a wave. Prabhupada likes saying the Brahma Jyoti is particles. Tiny, 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 all packed up. So that's the model that he's speaking from. A fractional portion of the sky, that's the Brahma Jyoti, that's liable to be covered by a dark cloud. That's the mode of ignorance. We're susceptible to being covered. So here we go again. There's the poetry, unpacking the poetry. There's this vast empty sky in any season, including the rainy season. Vast empty sky, that's the absolute truth. A portion of the sky, when covered with clouds, that's the living entity. Covered by clouds, tamas, thunder, rajas, and lightning, that's goodness. The only beam of hope that can lead one to the path of knowledge. Now sit back, and you're a sadhu. You saw, those that were with us yesterday, you saw the room, Vamsi Gopal Temple, a little tiny place, 17 feet by 9 feet, with paint coming off the walls. And you're doing your cooking in that little space, and you're envisioning giving the world a transformation message, and they don't know anything. It's a mountain. And look at all what he's done in one verse. So let's see what's next. Chapter 2 is next. Happiness through obedience to the laws of the Supreme. That's subtitle. So in the summer season, there's scorching heat. And you see in the painting, the scorching heat has dried up the earth, no vegetation, it's very difficult. Scorching heat of material existence. The text, the scorching heat of the sun evaporates water from the seas, rivers, lakes, and reservoirs, and there is little water anywhere. The people become thirsty and always look overhead for rain, but in despair. Now that's in the summer season. Now in the rainy season it comes abundantly. Yet, just at the right moment, torrents of rain begin to fall everywhere on the land, even on the hard stones, and the land becomes overflooded. Scene of nature. The rainy season, it happens every year. I don't know if some of you have seen that what happened after that big deluge of rain in California. Everything is so verdant and green and colors and flowers and spectacular. Without rain, you don't get that. So when it's summer season, they're very much looking forward to the rain. But sometimes the rain comes in a way that's a little bit difficult to handle. Another one of our artists' paintings for this particular verse, torrential rain of mercy. Now, the scorching heat of the sun, Prabhupada quickly goes to taxes. Tax benefits for the welfare of the citizens are tiny compared to how they're taxed. And thus, he likens it to the unequal distribution of rain. Now, that has to do with the benevolence of the government, or what the government understands their purpose to be, just like what the purpose of clouds when they give rain. And previously, the qualified king, Prabhupada used in ancient days, kings were trained in good character by ideal teachers. Now, there's throughout this throughout the light of the Bhagavat, there's reference again and again, lightly and some not so lightly, to the Varnashram system. And as we know, Prabhupada was a champion of the Varnashram system. And to institute it is not easy, but on the other hand, it's just natural, and so it is easy. But to have qualified kings, they have to have qualified brahmanas to train them, and there's a short supply of both. But when they're trained, then they extract taxes, but they distribute the taxes profusely. Prabhupada explains, in this age of Kali, that's absent, and because of their own folly, that is, wanting a government that's elected rather than a government of the qualified people trained by brahmanas, they bring about their own folly. It's just the present age. Prabhupada didn't like the system of governance. He didn't like it. And he wrote about it often. Good character in the mass of people is the first symptom and first principle for a good government and for their suitable distribution of personal wealth. Scenes of nature, it's the rainy season, it's been the summer season, now the rainy season has come. And he's speaking about governance and social structures. And in the absence of qualified brahmanas, etc., the Sankirtan Yajna is, of course, being put forward, because in this age of Kali, it's the means of purification and spiritual elevation. And to accept that principle, Prabhupada speaks of this one: obedience is the first law of discipline. Anyone here not heard that phrase from Prabhupada before? Obedience is the first law of discipline. So, obedience unto whom? And then, so, Light of the Bhagavat says the qualified Brahmana and qualified Kshatriya. In the absence of qualified Brahmana and qualified Kshatriya, what do? There's teachings that are in the Bhagavat, so you go to the Bhagavat and take the teachings from the Bhagavat that come in disciplic succession from qualified persons. In places and languages, they may not have that, what to do. Sankirtan Yajna. So his message in text 2, ample state taxes should be spent to build character of people in general. There was a point in time when the Hare Krishna movement was growing and growing and growing, and one reporter asked Prabhupada, if you were elected president of the United States, would you accept? And Prabhupada laughed and said, no, we can advise the president, because that's the Brahmana's duty, and that's what he's doing. He's not looking for control of government. And by being a government leader, building character of the people in general, but he's doing it in his other method, through his writings and through his devotees who are assisting him. So that's an important mission for us. Of course, you can't build good character if you don't have it, but adopting characteristics of one of good character, then we can model it and to some degree also teach it and propagate. That's the Sankirtan movement, as the image is showing. Okay, moving on to chapter 3. The lawmaker behind the laws. Nice painting. A scene of nature. You see in the top part, there's the clouds of the rainy season. It's a little dry, but the rain is coming soon. And there's a lawmaker behind these laws of, the movements of seasons, etc. Attracted by electricity throughout the sky and driven by forceful winds, clouds gradually covered the surface of the earth to satisfy the needy people by supplying water, which is the substance of their life. The clouds bestow rains upon man as the mercy of the Lord, who is always kind to the needy living being. So, lawmaker behind the laws. And behind all these seasonal changes, etc., and everything, there's the all-merciful Krishna. And there are persons who are covered that don't remember that relationship with Krishna and therefore feel fearful and so many other negative emotions. Despite our gross disobedience to the laws of nature, Krishna is always kind and merciful. So he speaks of the rain of mercy. Water is one of the most important items for our maintenance. And Bhoktaram Jagatapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. He supplies the necessities of everyone. So he maintains us. And there's a system for it. And he sets up the system and he maintains the system. And by that system, the life-giving substance of rain is provided. Of course, pious people and impious people may have a different consequence of rain or no rain. And Krishna is that lawmaker behind the laws. The painting in the background is the universe. And at the bottom of the universe is an Anantashesh holding up on his hoods the planets and the whole universe. But the material nature works so nicely and not blindly because of the superintendence of the supremely powerful Krishna. As I'm going through this, it's good. I find it beneficial to remember who is his audience. These are people that don't know anything about anything. They have a high ideal. It's not also very unclear. What does culture of the human spirit mean? It could mean anything. And Prabhupada is giving it a definition. And it's the definition he's giving it to his audience that doesn't know anything about Vedic culture. Is the picture that Krishna is at the center. And remembering Krishna is part of the life of one who's in elevated consciousness. And even when it becomes stormy and rough and difficult, this divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of material nature is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Prabhupada is including these messages right in the third chapter. So it's the Bhagavatam, light of the Bhagavat, but also being supported by essential verses of Bhagavad Gita. Back to the poetry, there's cloud-like jivas bestowing mercy. Here's Prabhupada's writing. Maharaj Dasarath, the father of Lord Ramachandra, used to fight with his enemies. It was said that he approached them just like a farmer, uprooting unnecessary plants and trees. And when there was need of giving charity, he used to distribute money, exactly as the cloud distributes rain. The distribution of rain by clouds is so sumptuous that It is compared to the distribution of wealth by a great, munificent person. The clouds' downpour is so sufficient that the rains even fall on rocks and hills and on the oceans and seas where there's no need for water. A cloud is like a charitable person who opens his treasury for distribution and does not discriminate whether the charity is needed or not. He gives in charity open-handedly. What's Prabhupada doing here? He's taking scenes from the Vedic texts, in this case Ramayana, and illustrating how one, a jiva, can be merciful like Krishna. A qualified jiva, like Dasarath, is strong, at the same time very charitable. And he also points to King Rantidev. You all know the story of Rantidev. Anyone here not know the story of Rantidev? Okay. A nice king. And he was known to be very charitable. And he was also known to be capable of very difficult austerities. And the purpose of his doing difficult austerities was he would gain pious merit by those austerities, and he wanted that pious merit that went to him to go to his citizens. So he decided one time to do an extended sacrifice, a fast. How many days? How many days was Rantidev's fast? No water, no eating, nothing, for some period of time, 30 days, something like that. Whew. Good luck. And when it came time for breaking the fast, his royal court made an arrangement for a royal feast. So there we see that King Rantidev sitting on a royal seat with a royal feast in front of him, breaking the fast early in the morning on that particular auspicious day. Now, in the upper left corner, you see Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. So they decided they wanted to test Rantidev and see how charitable. They heard he was very charitable. So they disguised themselves. One came as a man that was very poor. And just when Rantidev was supposed to break the fast, the very poor man, who was Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma, came before him saying, "I'm really hungry. Can I have something to eat?" And Rantidev said, "Sure. You take half of what's here on my plate, and I'll take the other half." So his guest took half, and he was ready to start breaking his fast with the other half. And in comes another man with puppies. See the puppies? And my dogs are really hungry. Can I have something for my dogs? Sure, you take the other half. I still have some water. And then a third person came. And the third person, "I'm so thirsty. Can I have some water?" And Rantidev, a long soliloquy about what good fortune it is to be able to give in charity to persons who are in genuine need. How kind is the personality of God, and he gave his water. And so then the two demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, they revealed that they were actually the pauper and they were actually the man with the puppies. And I don't know who the third person was, maybe Indra, who was the thirsty person. So they appeared to test him. And he passed the test. He got an A exam. Because by nature he was very merciful and charitable. Now, we may not have that same quality or capacity or something, but the principle is a principle to live by, where living entities can be distributions like the rain cloud, the distributions of something that people need to our capacity. I remember very clearly hearing Bhakti Tirtha Swami. Some of you know who was Bhakti Tirtha Swami. Some of you are nodding yes. Some of you don't know. No, okay. He was a sannyasi, an African-American sannyasi. And he grew up in Cleveland in a ghetto. And his family was very poor. And one day he brought his friend home, and his mother saw that his friend didn't have a proper shirt. So his mother went to the closet where there were two shirts, and he said, give this to your friend. Give one of the shirts to your friend. He didn't question, wait a minute, I only have two shirts. It was just his mother's charitable nature. Whatever you have, you share. I heard this many years ago, and it's still with me, obviously. Commensurate with our capacity, we should be charitable. Not, ridiculously so, but in principle, according to our nature and according to our capacity. Being charitable is the duty of life, the duty of a soul that feels for the inconvenience of others, and if there's anything you can do reasonably, then you do that. So now going further with this poetic imagery of Srila Prabhupada, the clouds, he was very specific. The clouds are compared to the merciful benefactors. The Sanskrit word is karuna. Benefactors, those who give mercy. And the clouds move by the agency of the wind. So similarly, the merciful person is moved by the suffering of the people. The lightning in rain clouds is the light by which they see the distressed condition of the earth due to the hot summer season. Imagery, poetic imagery. The blowing winds are the heavy breathing, such as that found in a distressed person. The huge clouds were shaking because of feelings of compassion, releasing all their water, just as merciful persons give up even their lives for the welfare of others. The principle, lessons of life from nature. Attracted by electricity throughout the sky and driven by forceful winds, clouds gradually cover the surface of the earth to satisfy the needy people by supplying water, which is the substance of their life. The clouds bestow rains upon man as the mercy of the Lord, who is always kind to the needy living being. Poetry. So here's some more. Just as water is one of the most important items for our maintenance, similarly eagerness to receive mercy from the Supreme is an essential part of our well-being. Acknowledging this necessity is likewise an essential element of, and he goes back to the theme of that conference, cultivation of the human spirit. He presents the scene of nature, he goes into lessons of life, and he connects it back to the theme of the conference. He's never been to Japan. He doesn't know, just has some idea. And we had the right idea, for sure. It's true that people in the Far East, they like learning lessons in life from scenes in nature. So that's the medium. Chapter 4. Life of freedom in eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Look what he's doing. He's, Satchitananda, simultaneously one and different. The system of our ashram. And now is, here we go. Life of freedom in eternity, knowledge, and bliss. There's the painting from our celebrated artist friend. After heavy rain showers, the fields and forest in all directions appear green and healthy. Thus, they resemble a man who has undergone severe austerities for some material gain and has achieved his end. For such a man is strong, hearty, and good-looking. Now, that's the verse. I thought it would be nice to show you the actual verse from the Bhagavatam. Thus the earth was like a person whose body has been emaciated by austerities undergone for a material purpose, but who again becomes fully nourished when he achieves the fruit of those austerities. He's taking poetic license. And the BBT purport, tapasya or austerity should be accepted only for realizing the Supreme Lord. By accepting austerities in devotional service, one regains his spiritual life, and as soon as one regains his spiritual life, he enjoys unlimited spiritual bliss. So from the rainy season comes, everything becomes green and colorful. Very nice. Although pleasant, however, the rainy season and the bounty from rainy season doesn't last long. Similarly, severe austerities for temporary gain are simply a waste of time and energy, and it invites one into this realm of duality, sometimes, sukha and dukkha. So Prabhupada is inviting his reader to the realm of transcendence. Our duty is to achieve permanent happiness and eternal life. Remember, this is just verse number 4. He calls it chapters. Human life is meant for ending all miseries and achieving the ultimate goal of life. That's where he's taking his reader, or wants to take his reader. Life of freedom in eternity, complete knowledge, and a blissful atmosphere. That's hope-giving, isn't it? One should try to live in the unlimited clear sky, overflooded with rays of sun and moon. So he's going to shortly get into the metaphor of sun and moon. It's natural. Summary of this chapter 4. Worthy austerities are those which give rise to a life of freedom, found within the spiritual goals of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Downpours of mercy from the Supreme and from those jivas endowed with the human spirit are essential to achieve this aim. Now, the human spirit, shortly he's going to equate the human spirit to self-realization. But all along it's attain those endowed with the human spirit are those that are self-realized. And then they have something that they can give. However, it may be a modest amount, but they have something to give and they're eager to give. And behind them is the Supreme Lord who has unlimited. One more verse or chapter, and we're done. Lack of proper guidance. So that happens sometimes. Here's the painting of the lack of proper guidance. You see what's in the painting. It's fireflies at night. You have fireflies down here? No. Really? Okay. Go to the park and you'll see a lot of them. So what's a firefly? Fireflies, they have something, some kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but they gather the light of the sun, and when the sun goes down, the backside of their body shows that stored light of the sun, and they fly around, and it's pretty interesting. They don't crash either. They just keep zooming around. Fireflies. So that's fireflies. The evening in the rainy season is dark all around. There's no sight of the twinkling stars on the horizon or the pleasing moon. They're covered by clouds. The insignificant glowworms, or fireflies, become prominent in the absence of the luminaries in the open sky. So here's a painting showing the 4 seasons, summer, fall, winter, spring. as there are movements of time through seasonal changes, there are movements of time through much bigger cycles than the 4 seasons or 1 year. And this is a nice chart. Some of you might want to study this nice chart. The very top is the lifetime of Brahma. That's a big number, 311 trillion years, or so many kalpas or days of Brahma. So 36,000 means 360 times 1,000. Right? 1,000 yuga cycles. So that's a long lifetime. And you can break down this lifetime into different days of Brahma, going left and right. 1 day of Brahma is such duration. During a day of Brahma, there's so many manus. And during each of the manus, there's 4 cycles. 71 cycles of the 4 ages. And we're somewhere down, in Kali Yuga, 432,000, lower right. So it's a big, big, big cycle. So time, in short, time moves in cycles. Time moves in cycles. And there's big ones, there's medium ones, and there's small ones. And the seasons are actually kind of small, but they're smaller than seasons. There's day and night. And they're different, so time moves in cycles. Kali Yuga, our present age, is compared to the cloudy season. Many difficulties are experienced during this damp season. In Kali Yuga, there's dearth of proper guidance. It's one of the messages of the Bhagavatam, that even when people have an interest, we all have experience, when people have an interest, they start searching and they get misguided. Yes? And once they get misguided, it's pretty hard to help the misguided. Sometimes it can happen, but it's a little challenging. So the dark evening in the rainy season, that's the painting or the photograph. There's no sight of the twinkling stars or the pleasing moon, and there's insignificant fireflies and glowworms. That's it for light in the night of the rainy season. Self-made incarnations and pseudo-religionists become prominent in this age of quarrel. What to do? We have our answer. It's a disciplic succession. That's Krishna's answer in Bhagavad Gita, and that's the conclusion of chapter 5 in light of the Bhagavat. So now, how do you discern what's the proper chain of disciplic succession that takes good fortune and also some discrimination? But if one gets both good fortune and some capacity to discriminate, then you're in good shape. And if not, it's a little troublesome. It's fireflies and glowworms. There's 45 chapters, and the system that Prabhupada has used, you saw, he takes a passage from Canto 10, Chapter 20, and poeticizes that message, so we get a picture of the scenes of nature, and then through the lens of that scene of nature, he's revealing the light of the Bhagavad. He's revealing truths that are within the whole range of the Srimad Bhagavatam, not just that particular chapter. Lessons of life. And that's the mode of expression. It's poetic, but it's with text, not just poetry. It's text to help his reader understand how people in this dark age of Kali can get light from Srimad Bhagavatam, and by that method cultivate the human spirit. It's nice. Very nice. So let's see if there's some discussion. Yeah, Lakshmi.
Favorite sections of the Bhagavatam, which is 24 gurus. In the 11th canto, the 7th chapter of the Bhagavatam, and how there's a list of the earth, the sun, the moon, mountains, trees, and all, natural occurrences, how they are my teacher. And this seems to have, there seems to be some correlation between what's going on in the light of the Bhagavata and that section and the 11th canto, which is it like a 33, 34, 35 in this 7th chapter. The whole list. And it's just, we see the world, just like Krishna does. We see the world, and there's a connection to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so, and Ranti Dev fasted for 48 days.
48?
Yeah.
48. You have a good memory. Oh, you Googled it. Okay. The Bhagavatam is delightful. There are a few places, that's one of them, and what Prabhupada is doing here is another one. And there's another King Paranjan story. It's metaphorical as opposed to actual historical. But the rest of it is actual historical. So it's nice. Poetry is nice. Even historical things one can understand by poetry, or by this will help us understand life better, etc. Anything else? Yes.
Pranam, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for your valuable association and the wonderful class. So I want to ask the light of Bhagavat, the Bhagavat and the Bhagavatam, like the meaning of or the difference, or like the Bhagavat and the Bhagavatam. Like,
Let me say back what I think you're asking. Correct me if I've not understood. There are two words, the Bhagavatam and there's Bhagavat. You want to know what are the two terms, how are they similar or dissimilar? That's what you want to know? Yes?
yeah, yes.
Well, I'm not a Sanskritist, but this is my limited understanding. My limited understanding is Bhagavat means in relation to Bhagavan. So the book is one of those sound vibrations that's in relation to Bhagavan, and thus it's the Bhagavata. And I'm sure you know the verse. There's the person Bhagavata and there's the book Bhagavata. So, Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata. So that case, the Bhagavata can mean either the person or the book. So Bhagavatam is there's probably some Sanskrit technical use. You put an M at the end and it indicates the case of grammar. But they're both indicating the same thing. It's just the tense, the grammarian rule that it becomes Bhagavatam instead of saying Bhagavata. And I don't know that rule. Is that all right? They're the same.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful lecture. and I really appreciate the time and effort that you spent on this PPT to explain. And I
does
have a
take time.
question. I have a question regarding the so when Srila Prabhupada predicted in Kali Yuga that there'll be just thunder and there'll be clouds, then there is no rain. So what happens in Kali Yuga? Because water is so essential and
Because water is what?
so essential for life,
Yeah.
and it comes from the clouds.
Yeah.
And in Kali Yuga there'll be no rain,
Well, less.
less.
We have got rain.
So my question is, what happens when I'm comparing to, like, there'll be no guidance from spiritual masters or the Bhagavats? What happens in Kali Yuga?
Down and down and down. You know, the Manda Samanda Matayo Manda Bhagya Hupadruta. It's right in the Bhagavatam. In this age of Kali, that's the situation. Manda means bad. Bad and bad and bad and bad and bad. It becomes, what happens, it becomes bad. And when it becomes really bad, people head for the hills. Because it's too oppressive. But, back to your question, what about rain? So, therefore, the process, I heard Prabhupada, it was a dialogue between Prabhupada and Allen Ginsberg. And I saw the photo of Allen Ginsberg and Prabhupada, and they were in Columbus, Ohio. And Allen Ginsberg was saying what happens after the 10,000 years, which is kind of what your question is. Yes? Prabhupada painted such a dark picture. Everything will break down. I mean, I don't verbatim, I can't recall verbatim, but it becomes so oppressive. And the uplifting effect of chanting of the holy name does not have the same efficacy. The holy name is absolute, so it's not dependent on anything. At the same time, there's a special benediction during this period of time that persons in this dark age of Kali can get benefit from chanting the holy name in the Sankirtan process. But very clearly, I'll see if I can find it. I think I know where I can find it. Prabhupada was saying, everything becomes broken. People leave because it's unbearable. Wasn't a pretty picture. So, what to do? Don't stick around. Finish your business and make your Krishna connection soon. I mean, it's a long period of time, 10,000 years, but don't stick around. Someone else? Yes? Hare Krishna. So I can hear you. One question, and he's going to push the button for you.
You mentioned in the beginning that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the native for the rainy season in Vrindavan is Barha, the sister,
Barha, B-A-R-H-A,
Barha, the sister of Vrinda.
the sister, cousin sister.
So we also understand that the personality responsible for bringing down rains is Lord Indra, the demigod. So I'm not understanding here.
Personality of the rainy season. In Vrindavan, she's the personality of the rainy season.
So Indra has no.
We didn't say Indra has no. She's the personality of the rainy season. She's personally invited by her cousin sister Vrinda. What does Vrinda do? What does Vrinda do? She does Krishna's pastimes in
Right.
Vrindavan. Now, what's Indra's role? He's send rain clouds. Okay, great. It's not like he's a 0, but he's not a 10 either in Vrindavan.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, thank you so much for the wonderful lecture. I spent so many hours putting this together. Thank you so much. So my question was, this whole Light of the Bhagavad is, Prabhupada has taken simple nature scenes and he's seeing Krishna and everything, like the basic, do not forget Krishna. Again, I know it's a how-to question.
How to?
How
I
do
have a
we cul-
flashcard for how-to questions. Go ahead, say how
So,
to.
how do we cultivate that? We are seeing Krishna and everything. How do we connect that?
Sadhu
Anything?
Sangha. Then you start unpacking Sadhu Sangha and you fluff it out. There's this strand and that strand. You put it back together and you get Sadhu Sangha. You know, what is Rupa about Sadhu Sangha? When there's some preliminary faith, adau shraddha tata, Sadhu Sangha. And what's Sadhu Sangha? You bhajana kriya. You do with sadhus what sadhus do. That's what it is. And you do with sadhus what sadhus do, and that's the how-to. That's the horse that carries you to where you want to go. Of course, then there's qualifiers and there's strands to that cotton ball, but it's Sadhu Sangha. That's how to. And take it very seriously. Or, and the negative side, be very, very wary of offense, because offense can be detrimental when you're in Sadhu Sangha and you're kind of like checked out. Be careful. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, thank you so much for the wonderful class. My question is, in the one of the slide, if you perform austerity, then end of the austerity you get nourished.
You get nourished.
Nourished, right? The season changing. The Prabhupada is saying that the summer season and then rainy season. So
You want to know how that works? If you're doing austerity, how do you get nourished? That's your question?
no, is that applicable for devotee
Of
or?
course.
And is it temporary?
Well, it depends on the consciousness. Doesn't it? In some cases, it doesn't even depend on consciousness. It just depends on the austerity. Coming up is Nrsimha Chaturdashi. In the Nrsimha Purana, mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilas, in the Nrsimha Purana, asks Lord Nrsimhadev, how did I get to this position? You know the story? It's something. So, Nrsimhadev tells Prahlad, in your previous life, you were a Brahmana by birth, but became attached to a prostitute. And in your attachment to the prostitute, on Nrsimha Chaturdashi, you got in a quarrel with her. And because of the quarrel with her, you fasted all night. And therefore, now you've become my dear devotee. It wasn't a consciousness transformation. It was a benediction that came from unintentionally, accidentally, circumstantially doing bad stuff, but engaging in something that's so auspicious. So who knows? Maybe if you fast on a Nrsimha Chaturdashi, you'll become Prahlad in your next life. Who knows? Don't count on it. Maybe though. There's power. There's potency, even unknowingly. What to speak of intentionally and knowingly. And it's not that because I do it knowingly that I'm going to become Prahlad or something like that. There's merit that comes from punya, And then there's transcendental punya that besides material punya. And it's just built into transcendental life. Knowingly or unknowingly. It's the same with offense. The work goes the other way. Knowingly or unknowingly. There's consequences. Right? The king that became, King Nriga that became a lizard. Unintentionally, something happened. He became a lizard. But Krishna rescued him. Okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class. I just have a quick question. When we were talking about like chapter 1, I think it's also a how-to question.
Okay, fine.
Uh,
Sadhu Sangha. I learned that from Jayadvaita Swami, by the way.
so we were talking about how the clouds, like the merciful clouds, represent like the merciful devotees around us, right?
Yeah.
But
But
on top of that, like how much of our effort plays into that?
oh, absolutely, effort plays into it. And circumstantial. It's not a fixed formula. But supposing you have good association and you're out to lunch, meaning you're just not present with that exalted sadhu. The benefit is not going to be the same as if there's affinity for the sadhu because they're sadhu, and trying to, draw mercy from that sadhu, mercy-giving sadhu. Cow. You have to milk a cow. You follow? So, get a cow, milk the cow, find sadhu sangha, and serve in a nice mood those sadhus. And that the different ways of serving are different according to the sadhus and the circumstance and so forth. But the mood of service unto a sadhu and doing with sadhus as sadhus do, that's the principle. Is there effort required? Yes.
So my question was, you've answered my question, but my question was like, there's effort required on our part to
Yes.
change our old practices
Yeah.
into the practices that align with this.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. You've noticed, I'm sure. The anukulya sankalpa pratikulya, the accept things favorable, and the other part is also there. Supposing you accept things favorable, but you don't reject things unfavorable, you're a little crippled, or it's not. It doesn't have the same. So, is there effort required to let go of things? Yes. But the strength to let go of things comes from something that's higher, and then when that something that's higher is experienced, it's easy to let go of lesser things. See it the other way. If you're not experiencing the higher things, it's not easy to let go of the lesser things. It may be in place for some time, but then there it goes again because it's a tendency. So we have to the toxic tendencies with elevated tendencies, and then it makes it easy. Say yes to Krishna, say no to Maya. Is that right?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Is in one of the slides, it's wealthy austerities. So, which chanting is considered wealthy austerity.
Some people find it to be an austerity. Some people find no chanting, that's austerity. I don't recommend you try it out. Test drive the no chanting and see what it's like. So, in other words, a lot depends on the mode of nature. And that which is in the mode of goodness is enjoyable for those in the mode of goodness. But those in the mode of ignorance and passion, that which is enjoyable for those in the mode of goodness. So what is your question, back to your question, for a devotee, what is austerity anyways? It's regulating the senses and redirecting the senses to the higher consciousness, according to Guru Sadhu Shastra. That's austerity. And there's fundamental ones, the four regular principles, those are austerities for some people. And then you may want to accept some other, like, let's say, because it's coming up, the Shringa Chaturdasi. So what you want to do on the Shringa Chaturdasi besides your chanting, so austerities that match you style and what your commitments are that day, and you make that as an offering unto Vaishnava austerity. Recite some prayers, something that suits your nature, inspires you. Not. You may, whatever the do nots things might be. Don't speak harsh words to your family members, for example. I'm not saying that you do. But, that's an example of... Yes, sir. Hare Krishna.
Ask that question.
You have a chanting question. Go ahead.
So we know that chanting is a prayer to Lord Krishna and Radharani to engage us in their service. And the mood we should have is we are very helpless, which is real. And on the other side, chanting is also service. You're serving the holy name. So you're happy doing that. So which mood is better? Because personally, when I do the chanting and you're in the mood, that, which is true, you're hopeless, you have no hope, but you're asking Krishna for mercy, but you feel kind of destitute. But on the other hand, when you're doing it as a service, then you get little bliss, or at least experience some bliss because you're enjoying the service. So what should be the mood cultivated while doing chanting?
The wrong answer to that question. At different times, you may feel inspired this way, and at other times you may feel inspired that way. And the essence is not, is it this way better than that way? The essence is taking shelter of the holy name and feeling the connection. Now that's where the problem lies. Feeling the connection. Feeling. Because the connection is there, because the name and Krishna are not different. But feeling that connection. So sometimes you may feel that connection more this way or that way. And there's more ways than those two. Go to the essence.
Thank you.
Like that answer?
Yeah.
Okay. Online questions. We're running out of time.
So, question from Vamsi Krishna Somasi Prabhu. Question: Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, just like Rantideva was tested, we might also get tested by Maya. So, what should be the mood, if at all, we fail in these tests and maintain enthusiasm?
What's
Thanks.
the mood that we need to maintain enthusiasm when we're tested? That's the question? A lot to say on that. I like Bhaktivinoda Thakur's explanation of Utsahan. He in one of his writings, Bhakti Loka, he goes through the six and gives details on all six. And when it comes to Utsahan or enthusiasm, he Concludes by saying you can't go forward in spiritual life without enthusiasm. It's imperative. So how do you maintain enthusiasm? How do you begin enthusiasm? And that once you have the answer to the how you begin, how do you maintain?